everyone, Clack of the Geek here, and welcome back. So now that the dust has settled on Doctor Who Flux, Doctor Who 13, it's been about a month since it finished. You know, I think people have kind of sort of formed an opinion on it, and I think I have as well. It was flawed but fun, and I'd say I pretty like it more than most. I mean, it's not quite as good as I used to say. I think I said it was like top 5 of New Who. Not quite there now, it's a little bit lower, but still, I really enjoyed it, and I'll still defend parts of it. And it was not perfect by any stretch, it was quite messy a lot, and there was a lot going on. But if there's one thing that I will always defend about this series, and the thing that I loved probably most about it, were the characters. There was a massive roster of characters, you know, from villains to heroes to the, you know, the TARDIS team and whatnot. And most of them, you know, there was a lot of variety with them. They were unique, interesting, I liked them mostly, and I really connected with them. And when they all appeared in the Vanquishers, despite how many flaws that episode has, when they all appeared and they were like teaming up and you saw different characters teaming up with people, I loved that. I got a real kick out of that. So I decided, you know what, do a little ranking video on all the Flux characters. I should say this is going to be main player characters because I'm not going to include characters like the Napoleon guy from Survivors of the Flux or the Cybermen in Once Upon a Time or Blake Harrison's character in Village of the Angels because they were like one and done scenes. But other characters like Mary SEACOLE or Belle and Vinder, they're included because they were pretty pivotal in the story. So let's get to it. In last place, TECTEUN, the Doctor's adopted mother, who, you know, is previously seen in Timeless Children, where she never spoke a word. So it's very hard to get invested in a character who is... Like, it's really hard to get invested. And part of this is the Timeless Children's fault from Series 12, because obviously she never spoke a word. We never really know who she properly was. Like, we were told, we weren't shown. You know, tell, don't show. You know, it's like... So it's really hard to get invested, and the scenes with her in Survivors of the Flux felt really flat. I was really bored with them. I was not invested remotely, and I just didn't care at all. At slot number 16, Diane, Dan's kind of love interest that we see in Halloween Apocalypse, and we've seen a few other episodes, Vanquishers, Survivors of the Flux. Diane was honestly kind of pointless. Like, she didn't do an awful lot in the end, and, you know, the whole resolution to her and Dan's kind of love, like, will they, won't they thing, and like that they didn't get together, like, it is a bit odd, I think. Although she is a kind of likeable character, especially in the Halloween Apocalypse. I like her scenes with Dan. So at least when she was on screen, at least, you know, I liked her. So there's that. But she is fairly pointless, to be honest. Number 15, Joseph Williamson, a real historical figure from the 19th century, you know, from Liverpool, who dug up those tunnels that nobody knew about and they were incorporated in the Flux. That was kind of a cool idea, but he really only was relevant in Survivors of the Flux when they actually explained it away. One of the few good things that episode did. And obviously the Vanquishers, you know, he gets a little send-off, he's done his job and he goes. But like the first few episodes, for like half of the series, he was just popping up and just stealing runtime of the episodes away from what could have been used to, you know, expand other elements that were underdeveloped. You know, he could have been introduced. He didn't need to be introduced in the Halloween Apocalypse. He could have been introduced a bit later. He didn't need to. I don't know. Either he didn't need to be there, or introduce him better. And I just didn't particularly care for him an awful lot. For most of the series, I really wish I could have ranked Kate Stewart higher, but she has to go in at number 14 for me. If there's any plot point from Flux that I would drop in a heartbeat, it would be the unit stuff with Kate Stewart and the Grand Serpent that was set up in episode 5 for some reason, and it's like it does not need to be there. And again, it's just eating time away from things that could be better developed and properly explained, you know. And it just overcrowds the finale more, and she just, because she doesn't really do anything. She doesn't really do anything. I mean, it was nice to see her again, and I love Kate Stewart. You know, it's nice to see her again, and it was great to see her, you know, interact with the 13th Doctor. Hopefully, she might come back, maybe one of the specials. But yeah, she is her plot point is definitely the one that is you could have taken out, and it wouldn't make much difference at all. At number 13, we have Belle. I liked Belle. I mean, you can't really talk about Belle without talking about Vinder, but because they are obviously, you know, partners and they're quite closely connected. But yeah, I liked Belle. I mean, some of her scenes did kind of feel out of the blue when they were in episodes, like specifically in Village of the Angels with her little scene. It did, although it was good, it did feel quite out of place. But overall, I liked Belle. I just liked how normal she was. You know, her and Vinder trying to get back together. You know, they were separated across the universe. I quite like that kind of thing. I appreciate just how normal she was, and I thought, yeah, she was quite likeable. I just liked her, you know. At number 13, we have Yaz. Now, I'll be honest, when I was making this list, I got to around this point and I'd genuinely forgotten about Yaz. I was like, oh, I have to include her on this list, and I, figured here, because I guess it's more a testament to how good the characters are that I'd put here, because, to be fair, this is Yaz's best series as companion. She takes charge. I like the dynamic with the Doctor, how she's like, she really does like her. Obviously, this isn't counting Eve of the Daleks, by the way, but I did like her in the series, but again, she did sometimes have the tendency to just like fall into the background at times, and yeah, but she was better, definitely much better here than in the previous two series. At number 11, we have the Grand Serpent. Now, this guy I thought was really good. I think, it is a great sort of gimmick with the whole snakes, coming out of people's bodies and he absorbs them. That's really gnarly and nasty, quite like that. The actor, Craig Parkinson, I think, he gave a really good performance. Very menacing, quite good screen presence. I really liked him. And, yeah, I thought he was quite an effective villain. But there were some bizarre things that they did with him. Like, obviously, they introduced him in Once Upon a Time as Vinder's boss, and Vinder blows the whistle on him, and that's why, Vinder gets exiled. But then, in episode 5, he shows up, and he's all of a sudden with, infiltrating UNIT, and he's got this nemesis with Kate Stewart in the Vanquishers, and it's like, there's people who I know who were, watching, other YouTubers I've seen, they were like, I didn't clock that they were the same character. And it's like, why would you do such opposite things? And it's like, it does muddy the waters in the Vanquishers. I mean, I kind of like his fate in the Vanquishers, sort of mirroring what Vinder had to go through. It could have been done better, though, I think. Cracking the top 10 is our main villains of the series, Swarm and Azure. I really like these guys. They were proper, boo-hiss, classic-y villains, Amazing makeup and costume. The look was great. The makeup is so gnarly and, it's brilliantly done. The actors both were fantastic, I felt. They were, very distinct as well, Swarm was very sort of grandiose, and then you had Azure, who was more sort of sly and softer, I thought. That, they were really distinct, and I look, their motivation was, simple but effective one. It was just, they want revenge, they want to destroy the universe. It's that kind of stuff. The main thing that does draw them a lot lower on this list is their abysmal fate in the Vanquishers. They just get zapped away. Come, that's just poor. That is just poor for such great villains. But I mean, they were still really good. Don't get that wrong. But if it wasn't for that fate in the Vanquishers, they could have been a lot higher. At number 9, we have Mary SEACOLE. Now, obviously, with how big and grand Flux was, I'm glad that, they didn't forget some of Doctor Who's essentials, and they had, obviously, historical with War of the Sontarans, set in the Crimean War, and you got Mary SEACOLE, an actual historical figure, and, she was really good. I really liked her. I liked how she sort of was kind of a surrogate companion to the Doctor for this episode, and she had really good lines, and overall, I mean, not the most developed. I think she could have been, they could have developed it a little bit further, but I think overall, she was really, really strong, and, was just, all around a really good historical figure. At number 8, we have Vinder. Now, he was very much marketed as quite a big character. I don't know why they marketed him as big as they did, but he's still a really good character. He was the special guest at the San Diego Comic-Con panel back in July. He was the special guest, and it was like, okay. Now, and then in episode 1 in Halloween Apocalypse, I didn't see why, because I just didn't engage with his little scene. I didn't care. But then, War of the Sontarans, when he met with Yaz and, he's facing off against Swan as well, I thought, oh, he's pretty cool. And then Once Upon a Time came, and I really loved the backstory and the history and, the stuff that this guy's gone through. I really like that stuff. And, this kind of character, like a space agent kind of character, this is a character kind of type that I'd love to see as a companion. I would love to see that. And when Vinder was sort of like a semi-companion, though, in, War of the Sontarans and Once Upon a Time, I really loved that. And, when then obviously episodes 4 and 5, it kind of does disappear. But then episode 6, in the Vanquishers, he reunites with Belle. And again, I love how just normal he is. It's these two people, intertwined in this massive event. And, I'm glad that their baby wasn't like the Doctor's parents. I'm glad that they weren't like the Doctor's parents, like some people were theorising, because that would just be like, that would just not work, I don't think. I'm just glad that they were normal, and I liked them, and I just really liked Vinder. At number 7, we have Claire. Now, I'm really surprised that she is as high as she is, but honestly, I just really like this character. I loved her introduction in episode 1, the Doctor lands on Earth, and Claire immediately recognises her. Clearly, she's done this before. It's a bit like in Blink, when Sally Sparrow
and the Doctor meet. Like, it's the first time they've met from the Doctor's perspective, but obviously it's at the end of the episode. We've seen it all happen as the audience, but I like how we see it from the Doctor's point of view. It's like the whole timey-wimey thing. I really like that. I love the little Weeping Angel thing with her in the episode, and then obviously Village of the Angels. I liked her. I liked the whole, you know, she got an angel inside her. I loved the bit in the dream sequence on the beach. You know, it gave the actor a chance to sort of do something a bit different with the performance. I really appreciate that. And I like their dynamic with Jericho. And then when they reunite, you know, Jericho and Claire and the Vanquishers, when they reunite, I really like that. I really like their chemistry together. I really like their dynamic. And it's kind of like a teacher-student thing. And I really appreciated that. And I found her a really likeable character. At number 6, the Weeping Angels in their best appearance since Blink. Now, I love them. I love their little vignette in Halloween Apocalypse, as I mentioned with Claire, you know, the whole spooky nighttime setting in the house. And I really like that little vignette. I love the little bit in Once Upon a Time with Yaz's dream and like the angel in the video game. That was a really cool. And the cliffhanger to that episode, you know, with the angel having controls of the TARDIS, that was really good and one of my favourite cliffhangers of Flux. But then you get Village of the Angels, a fantastic base on the sea story with the haunted house, and you know, they were so creepy. It expanded their mythology in ways that I thought were appropriate. You know, the sort of, you know, you can only get sent back in time by Weeping Angel once. I think that's fine. I think the way that they expanded on it, I think it worked, and it was better than what, you know, you saw in the Time of Angels episode and Angels at Manhattan. The only reason they're not a little bit higher is because I just think that kind of after Village of the Angels, they kind of just disappear from the series, to be honest. So that's why they're not higher. But honestly, they were done phenomenally well. And what we did get was perfect. It's just they kind of do get sidelined after they've made their big entrance thing. Yeah, but still, brilliant stuff. At number 5, Karvanista. Now, when he first appeared in the Halloween Apocalypse, I was thinking, oh god, they're not going to expect us to take this bloody space bungle from Rainbow seriously. They're not going to do a pating. Like they're not going to take this guy seriously as a threat. And Chris Chibnall knew that, and he didn't make him a full-out villain. But he was kind of an anti-hero at the start. You know, he had some kind of beef with the Doctor. It seemed, and I really liked him. I loved him and Dan's dynamic, and it was just a load of fun to see this guy. And he had a great little character arc. You know, starting from very bitter and almost like an anti-hero to very much a hero by the end, and I just really liked him. He's just class. You know, he's campy, he's cheesy, but he's brilliant. At number 4, the Sontarans. I always say that Chibnall does the classic monsters well, and I'd probably say the Sontarans are the best thing that Chibnall's brought back. You know, but the way he's reinvigorated them after the Moffat era of just making them a joke, and you know, there is still humour there, but it's the right amount of humour, you know, jokes like the horse joke, you know. It's little bits of humour, but it's in character. And they are brutal, you know, they're killing a lot of people. There's some really brutal things that they do, and they're just encapsulated perfectly, I think. And new actors, they've got, obviously Dan Starkey's still here, but they've got a couple of new actors to play them, and I think they're just all around done perfectly. At number 3, the 13th Doctor herself. Now, in Series 11, I am not a fan of her at all. In Series 12, there are episodes where, you know, she is kind of... Yeah, I do buy it, but overall, not particularly. But Flux, bang on the money. I think, you know, give Jodie some good stuff to do. She'll knock it out the park. And, she, you know, episodes like War of the Sontarans, Once Upon a Time, Village of the Angels, The Vanquishers, I think she was exceptional. And I really bought her as the Doctor. And not just like a sort of... She wasn't copying. I felt like I could define who this Doctor is, you know. Her sort of comedic front, that's exactly what it is, a front to hide this more, you know, secretive, darker, more sort of emotional, more vulnerable, more secretive Doctor. And, you know, it's like, that's something I couldn't really describe to the other Doctors, and I'm so glad that I found that with this series. At the runner-up position at number 2 is Evil Dan himself, Dan Lewis. What's the point of being alive if it's not to make others die? Man, I can't believe I owe half of my royalties on this site to John Bishop and Paul McCartney, but here we are. Anyway, Dan, he is my favourite Chibnall companion. John Bishop is an absolute delight on screen in every single episode. Even if his character is sort of near the end of the series, does kind of sort of fade into the background. Whenever he's on screen, his presence is just sort of... He's such an affable presence on screen. But in the first 3 episodes, I really like who they establish him as. You know, in Halloween Apocalypse, you know, he's a, you know, he's sort of dorky, but kind of... It was just really nice. War of Sontarans, when he's fighting Sontarans, I absolutely adored that. And in Once Upon a Time, you know, some of the little dream sequences we get to explore Dan's character, you know, as this lonely man whose love life fell apart years ago. You know, it's you know, emotional. It's not like overly dramatic and, you know, he's bursting out into tears, but it's subtle and it's really nicely done. As I say, I think from sort of, you know, like the last couple of episodes, I think he does lose a bit of that. Not just that he doesn't do as much, but I always love him on screen. And at number 1, Professor Eustace Jericho from the final 3 episodes, Village of the Angels, Survivors of the Flux, and The Vanquishers. This guy is one of my absolute favourite side characters of Doctor Who in recent memory. One of my favourites of the modern era. That's not even a hyperbole. He's amazing. In Village of the Angels, he's this, you know, sort of uptight professor, you know, more focused on his work. But as he learns and he grows throughout that episode, you know, he's more likeable. He's tough and stoic, you know, when it comes to facing the angels. And I loved some of his moments in that when he's facing the angels. His dynamic with the other characters was always great. Then Survivors of the Flux, you know, he was fun. Even though that their subplot with Yaz, Dan and Jericho when they were back in the past, even though that doesn't really go anywhere, it was fun in the moment, and he definitely added to that dynamic. I really enjoyed that. And then in The Vanquishers, as I said earlier, I loved his reunion with Claire. I loved the stuff that he got to do, and his death scene actually made me feel a lot. I did not want him to go. He's my favourite character from the series, and I didn't want him to go. So it was just perfect. I can't fault this guy. He was just all around just brilliant.